graphs is hugely important. So it's really, really important that we get these foundations right, because like I said, it's going to be a massive part of your maths in future. Alrighty, but let's have a look. So you guys have got such a frog. Sorry, I'm gonna have to drink water in a second, but let's have a look here. We want to describe each of the relationships that I've given you here using a formula. Now, we've done this quite a significant amount. I want to say like last week, Wednesday, we were already doing this. So we know how to do this. What's really important is that we read these questions or the information with understanding. If we don't, we're not going to know what's going on. So let's read this over here carefully. To calculate the output number, 7 is subtracted from the input number, and the answer is multiplied by 5. Right, so let's try. Let's see if we can get an equation. So you guys are going to try by yourself. Put it on the chat for me. Remember that your output number is represented by Y, your input number by X, and we write it as, in terms of our rule, Y equals blah, 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 blah. So let's see if we can get a rule for this. Remember, you can use brackets to indicate the order of work. We need to get this rule here. Okay, I'm just going to have a cough and some water because clearly this is not working. Okay, I'm not seeing any formulas yet on the chat. I'll read it again for you. The output number, or to calculate the output number, 7 is subtracted from the input number, and that answer is multiplied by 5. So break it down for yourself. Do it step by step. Let's see what we come up with. Remember, you're not going to know unless you try. Then you can use brackets to make sure that the order of work is done correctly. If you need to draw a flow diagram for yourself first, that's also absolutely fine. All right, guys, let's have a see. Okay, so like I said, go step by step. So I'm going to deal with the first highlighted bit here. 7 is subtracted from the input number. So here's my input number. I'm subtracting 7 from it. So x minus 7. The answer, so the answer of whatever I get here of x minus 7 is multiplied by 5. Right, now we can write that a bit neater and say that we've got the x minus 7, which is then multiplied by 5. And that's why I'm saying use brackets, okay? So brackets tell us that we have to do what's inside the brackets first. So the x minus 7, which is what I was told to do. And then I do the multiplication, which is what I was told to do. So brackets are a really powerful tool when we're starting to write down formulas to make sure that we do things in the correct order. If, however, if you wanted to, you don't have to, there's no reason to do it, but if you wanted to, and you wanted to distribute the 5, which is fine, you could also write this as y is equal to 5x minus 35. Both of those are absolutely fine. What's really important is that you're showing that you're multiplying by 5, so 5 is your coefficient, as well as the fact that you have considered the subtraction of 7. All right. So guys, really important that when we read these questions, we do it with understanding. So let's try question B. Again, we'll read it together. So question B says to calculate the output number, 7 is subtracted from the input number. Now, take note of the fact that that's basically the same as what I've already done. The answer is multiplied by 5. Again, exactly the same as what we've already done. But now what I'm adding onto this whole situation is the fact that I'm adding 3 to that product. So whatever the answer is when I multiply by 5, I'm adding 3. So use what you have already done. There's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. Use what we've already done here and see how this can help you answer question B. Try. Nice, guys. Keep those answers coming. Ooh. My cat took out my headphones. Okay, Samia, if you can't see the screen, you need to log out and log back in. Or if you want to try first, unpin and repin my screen, and that should solve the problem. If it's still not, just let Yolanda or myself know and we'll help you. Yeah, so just let us know if it doesn't work, we'll help you out if needed. Nice, grade 8s, well done. Right, so exactly, like I say, don't reinvent the wheel. Everything that I highlighted in the lighter green was the same. So the rule remains the same. The only thing that I'm now doing is I'm doing the addition of 3. So I need to then have plus 3. That's it, right? And so again, always check whether or not your questions follow on from each other. Always try and see if you can use information you've already found to get your next answer. Right, so let's take screenshots of these two. If you have any questions about these two, now's the time to raise your hand and ask. Remember, guys, questions are just keep them on the chat. And Yolanda and I will answer your questions as we go along. But if you do have questions, now is the time to raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to have a look at our next example. Manentle? Should be a pop-up to unmute yourself.
Yes, I wanted to ask that in A, yeah, you did take 5 and times it with 7, and it the answer is 35.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you did times 5 with x, and then it was 5x.
Yes. So all I'm saying is that if you want to distribute this, you are welcome to, but you don't have to. You can leave it as this. You will get full marks for that.
Oh, thank you very much.
No problem. Jason, I don't know what's not working. I can't help you if I don't know what it is. If it's video, log out and log back in, unpin, repin my screen. Yeah, you need to let me know what's not working and then I can help you. Right, guys, so let's have a look at our next question here. So our next question, we're going to complete some tables. Okay, everything's moved a little bit, but I'm just going to ignore it until we get there. We want to complete some tables. Actually, I'm not going to ignore it because it's just going to upset me otherwise. No, but I don't know. Okay, so Jason, I've told you how to deal with that. Log out and log back in, or unpin and repin my screen. Oh, guys, this is going to just upset me greatly. it's like technology just knows that I'm having a day, and it's like, yes, today is the day we're going to mess with you. Okay, right, let's look at A first to start off with though. Whoops. So we want to complete the table using the flow diagram. Now guys, like this is straightforward, right? What we know a flow diagram does for us is we have our input value X, we do all of these things that we're told to do, and we get our output value. Now, what I want you to first try and do is I want you to first try write down the equation. So when I ask for the equation or the rule, what I'm asking for is what we've essentially just done here. Or when I say just done here, what we just did earlier, the y equals and then some rule. So let's first start with that. Let's write down our rule. Okay, so just listen to me. I want you to first write down the rule. We will fill in the table in a second. First, write down the rule for me, okay? Because we need to practice this stuff. This is going to be very, very important as you move on. Okay, so rule y equals, look at your flow diagram, you're timesing by 2, you're adding 3, and then you're timesing by 5. So our rule should reflect that. Remember guys, any questions that you have, put them on the chat. I'll let you, or I will give you time to raise hands, but otherwise all questions in the chat, we'll do hands as we go along. Remember, use those brackets where need be. I'm going to give you another minute, and then we'll have a look at what the equation should be. Nice, guys. And remember, if you're feeling stuck, go back to the last examples that we did. Those will help you in order to answer that. In order to help you, I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. Nice, guys. Okay, so x is being multiplied by 2, so that's 2x. Then we're adding 3, so 2x plus 3. And then we're taking whatever answer we get from that whole situation and we're timesing it by 5. So it's very, very similar to the first question that we did. 5 times 2x plus 3. Now, again, if you want to distribute it, you can. You don't have to. If you did distribute, it would be 10x plus 15, because 5 times 2x is 10x, 5 times 3 is 15. Really importantly, though, grade 8, you don't have to distribute. There is no need to distribute. If you feel more comfortable distributing, go for it. But if you don't want to, it doesn't matter. You don't need to. All right, so guys, the question does say complete the table using the flow diagram. So the equation wasn't necessary. I just asked it so that we could practice it. But now we want to fill in this table. So I want you guys to fill in this table for me. And because you now have the equation and the flow diagram, you can use whichever one you are more comfortable with. So if you are more comfortable substituting for x in your equation, go for it. If you are more comfortable just using the flow diagram, go for it. I don't mind what you want to do, but I would like on the chat your output values A, B, C, D, E, and F. Exactly like Lupe has put there on the chat, numbered perfectly. Ideal that they're all together. Let's get those answers there. I am going to ask for people to raise hands to say the answer. So I'm just preempting it because I know that you guys get a bit nervous when I just spring it on you. So I'm telling you that in a few minutes I'm going to ask. So if you're feeling super confident, you're feeling like tonight's your night, get ready to raise your hand. Not yet. I will let you know when, but just start thinking about it. Guys, the first answer is not 25. So just be very careful, please. The first answer is not 25. So everyone who has written down 25 as their first answer, you need to go double check and make sure that you are doing your order of operations correctly. Credits, I'm a little concerned at some of our substitutions or some of our working out. Remember, when in doubt, check with a calculator. Okay, just because our substitutions were looking a little dodgy, I'm going to give you another minute or two just to double check that you are correctly doing the operation. So it needs to be the X value times 2, that answer plus 3, that answer times 5. Right, that's what we're doing. So just double check that you are correctly doing all of that. Okay, one more minute. All right, grade 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you would do the calculation just with your first answer, and then I'll ask for some hands. So if we take 5, I'm going to show you with the flow diagram and with the equation. So if we're going to use the flow diagram, we need to obviously follow the operations, which I'm just going to write out here. So our x value is 5. So we've got 5 times 2, which gives us 10. Then we move on to the plus 3. So 10 plus 3, which gives us 13. And then we do the 13 times 5, which gives us 65. So this first output value is 65. If you use the equation, which obviously absolutely fine, y is equal to 5 times 2x plus 3. We're going to substitute 5 in place of x. So 5 times 2 times 5 plus 3. Let's sort out the 2 times 5 first. So 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3. As we've established, 10 plus 3 is 13. And so, as we've already said, 5 times 13 is 65. Right, so like I said to you earlier, whether you use the flow diagram or whether you use the equation, doesn't matter. It's up to you, okay? The equation came from the flow diagram, so it's the same thing, whatever you're more comfortable with. Right, so would anyone like to raise their hand to give me the output value when x is 10? You're going to have to say your name for me. There's a pop-up to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, firstly, I'm so nervous, I don't know, really. But I used the flow diagram. So
Cool.
I took 10 and I basically took 10 and I multiplied it by 2. So I got 20. So I took 20 and I added 3. So I got 23. So I added 23 and so 23 times 5 basically is equal to 115. That's how I got my answer.
Excellent. Can you just say your name for me so that I know how to pronounce it in future?
My name is Roha.
Oh, okay. I was trying to say everything all at once. Thank you so much, Roha. And that was perfect working out. Well done. Absolutely perfect.
Thanks.
Nice. Okay, guys. So there we go. Using the flow diagram, absolutely 100% perfect. Anyone want to give me the output for C? So when our input is 15, what is our output? Nice, Sarah.
Hi. I did the equation, and
Cool.
my answer was 165.
Perfect. Well done. Okay, so guys, as you can see, flow diagram, equation, whichever one you want, you're gonna get the answer. Right, anyone want to give me D, E, or F's output? I'm just going to put them all out there. You can all raise your hands if you want. I'll pick it as we go. So D, E, and F, anyone keen to give me an output? So D is an input of 20, E an input of 25, F an input of 30. You guys are such a shy class, which is absolutely okay. And Dile, nice. And Dile, there should be a pop-up to unmute yourself. There we go.
Oh, hello, ma'am.
Hi.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Ma'am, D is 215 and E is 265 and F is 350. 15, yeah.
Good. Well done. Nice. Andile, 1, 2, 3. Smack bang. Well done. Right. So guys, exactly.
Please.
Right. So there are your outputs. Whether you're using flow diagram or equation, you get it. You need to choose what you're comfortable with. All right. Let's take screenshots. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to raise your hand and ask. But again, guys, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to use a flow diagram either to fill in a table or to write an equation. And then using both of these, we also do just need to be able to fill in a table. Whether that's then to draw a graph or whatever the case is, we need to be able to do this. Roha?
Sorry, but I wanted to ask if we should do each operation like separately, or should just add it onto our calculator like the same. I don't know if it's making sense.
Yes. All right. So it depends on the question. If we ask you to fill in the table, my advice would be look at the mark allocation. So this table, if I told you there was a mark allocation of 6, so this was for 6 marks, you're just going to get a mark per answer. All right. If we say fill in the table showing your calculations, then you need to show your use of the flow diagram or the equation. But if it literally looks like it's a mark per answer, you just do it on your calculator and you put in the values. But generally we will say showing all calculations, and then you have to show your working out.
Okay, thanks, ma'am.
Pleasure. All righty, guys, cool. I hope we've got our screenshots. I'll wait 10 seconds. Okay. Right, let's do question C. I know I'm jumping a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Let's have a look at question C. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Oh, see, technology again. Fighting with me. I don't know why it does this. It hates me. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We are going to write an equation, and then we're going to use either flow diagram or equation to fill in the table. So I'm going to ask you to try this by yourself. So let's call this question A, B, C, etc., etc. So I want a rule and I want output values. I don't mind whether you use the flow diagram to fill in the table or whether you use your rule, completely up to you. Either way, I want a rule and I want output values. Now, guys, remember, division, use a fraction. Okay, there's no need to try and make it all complicated. Just use a fraction line. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to wait for some answers on the chat. I will give you a few minutes, but let's try. Remember, guys, if you do have questions whilst you're doing it, just put them in the chat for us. We'll answer your questions. Okay, so we're not doing hands just yet. Questions on the chat for now? Both of our cats have joined. Both of our cats, both of my cats have joined our lesson. Got one baby sitting next to me and one baby, oh golly, being chaos on the floor. So we have company here for our lesson. Oh, there we go. Hello, my love.
They're very cute. They want to join the lesson with you, so I can see. Been seeing her going just around and around the table.
Because my boyfriend isn't here, so they only have mom with them at the moment. And they are
Oh,
like, Mom, we want love and attention.
yeah, also doing math. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, just remember when you are writing your equation, we're adding 5 to x. Whatever that answer is, we're dividing it by 2. And then whatever that answer is, we're subtracting 1. So just make sure you're doing it in the correct order. I do see some attempts there on the chat. Just make sure. Remember, use brackets if you need to, use a fraction if you need to. If you're really struggling with the equation, that's okay. Use your flow diagram to get your output values. We'll check the equation in a second. And remember, questions as you go along on the chat. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 more minute and then we'll have a look. Exactly like Lubanzi and Jason have done there on the chat. If you're not feeling too keen on that equation, move on. Do the output values. You can check your equation when we do it. And guys, that's an important skill to have for a test. If you're not managing to get an answer in one question, move on. You can come back to it. But sitting and struggling on a question for 20 minutes means that you just leave yourself with less time. So if you can't do it, move on, you can come back. Alrighty, let's start with the equation. All right, so again, guys, do it step by step. So if we're saying x plus 5, we've got x plus 5. Then we're taking that value and we're dividing it by 2. So we've got whatever x plus 5 is, and we divide it by 2. And then we're taking that and we're subtracting 1. So my equation, and it definitely was a harder one, so that's why I'm saying it's okay if we struggle, would be x plus 5 all divided by 2 minus 1. If you put the brackets in the numerator, that's absolutely fine. Doesn't make a difference, completely up to you. But really importantly is that your whole numerator is the x plus 5, because it was that sum that is being divided by 2. Right, if we then look at our output values, again, use the rule, use the equation, up to you. I'm going to start with B. So let me just take this red off up here at the top. We've got an input value of -3. So -3 plus 5 is 2. Then we've got 2 divided by 2, which is 1. And then we're subtracting 1. And 1 minus 1 is 0. Right, if we do the same thing with -1. -1 plus 5 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Right, then we keep going. So 0 plus 5 is 5. Now careful, we need to write it in here. 0 plus 5 gives us 5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And then 2.5 minus 1 gives us 1.5. If you wrote that as 3/2, that's also absolutely fine. If we then go to 5, 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 divided by 5, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 5 minus 1 is 4. 13 plus 5 is 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. So just be careful with D. It is actually a fraction or a decimal answer, because when you say 5 divided by 2, you get 2.5. You get a decimal. Right, so let's double check our output values. Again, the rule was definitely a trickier rule to get, so it's fine that we struggled with it. But just remember, it was the whole sum of x plus 5 that was divided by 2. Hence, this numerator over here. Okay, so guys, while you're taking screenshots, if anyone does have any questions, please raise your hand to ask. Otherwise, screenshots. We'll take a little break and then we will carry on. Mostly because you guys did really nicely in Monday's lesson, so we don't need to rush to get to the end stuff. Any questions? Raise your hand. Hand, yeah. If you sorted, that's cool. Just make sure your screenshots. Ziva. Yeah, so if they do ask it for a decimal, write it as a decimal. If they don't specifically say, then personally, I prefer fraction. So I would write my answer as a fraction. But yes, whatever they tell you to write it as, you have to do it. If they don't say, you can write it either way and we will give you the answer. I can't mark you down if you wrote it as a decimal if I didn't say it has to be as a fraction. So just read the instructions carefully, do what they say, but if they don't say, you can pick. Personally, I prefer fraction, so I would always write my answer as a fraction. Nkululeko, I don't know what you mean. Is this the only rule? So for this specific diagram, yes, this is the only rule, but there's an infinite number of rules that we have. It depends on what flow diagram we're given or what pattern we're given. It depends on the information. But for this specific flow diagram, this is the only version of the rule that we have. Okay, guys. So brain break, you know how this works. So this one a little bit different. We have to work across and down, but still the same situation. I want the value of this last equation down at the bottom here. I need to work it out myself. So let's see. Remember, first person to get it right will be explaining it for us. So make sure that answers go in the chat. Like I say, first person to get it right will explain it. Yep. And guys, just take note. I'm just going to zoom in. Take note of how many chickens there are, how many dungarees there are, and how many chocolate chip cookies there are. Just be careful. Remember, it's like solving an equation.
Let's see who's going to get it first. Let's go, guys. This is such a good exercise for your brain.
Caleb, nice.
Nice. That was fast.
Yeah, that was fast. Jeez, nice, Caleb. If you want to raise your hand to explain, that would be awesome. Hey, Caleb.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you? Hey, Caleb.
So firstly, what I did was I'm getting you.
Good, thanks.
So firstly, what I did was I worked down from the right side, and I said 200 minus 200 divided by 10 equals 20. So then each of those things are 10 each. And then since I know it's 20, I said 160 divided by 20 will equal 8. So then each one of those chickens are 4 each. And then 36 minus 8 equals 28. And then the last one is just 122.
Perfect. So, guys, like, beautiful use of inverse operations and understanding that this was an equation. All right. So, like I say, like the way Caleb did that is literally just taking that equation knowledge and applying it to pictures. So exactly like Caleb said, one dungaree is 10. We have all 4 cookies here, so I don't really need to worry about it. That's 28. And one chicken, as Caleb said, is 4. Now remember BODMAS, so we have to do the multiplication first. That gives us 112. And then 112 plus 10 is 122. So exactly as he explained it, perfect. And like I said, this is an equation, like you're solving an equation. Caleb, well done. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Alrighty, guys. So we've got 10 minutes. I've got some graphs. I think I'm going to pick the most interesting one and we're going to draw it. Oh, yes, baby. Let us draw C. This is a fun one. Okay, so hopefully you guys remember this from the other night when I say the other night, Monday night, when we drew some graphs. And remember, I said to you that your graphs that you draw aren't necessarily always going to be straight line graphs. Sometimes they will, absolutely, but not always. And so we need to be prepared to draw any type of graph that we throw at you. So X, Y, let's go. Let's go -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So guys, very similar to what we were doing on Monday. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch Monday's lesson. But what we want to do here is we want to take this rule of y is equal to 2x squared minus 3. And we now want to substitute these input values in place of x to get an output. So I'll do the first one with you, but you're going to do the other 4 by yourself. So if we look at our first one, we've got x is equal to -2, and I'm going to substitute that into my equation. Panic, right. So when I substitute, y is equal to 2 times -2 squared minus 3. Now, guys, this is where BODMAS is very important. BODMAS tells us, BODMAS, PEDMAS, whatever you use, tells us that we need to do the brackets or the exponent first. Now, remember, this exponent is saying -2 times -2. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we've got y equals 2 times 4 minus 3. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 3 is 5. So we get an output of 5 when we have our input of -2. So based on what I've just done, I want you guys to quickly get for me the remaining 4 outputs that we have here, A, B, C, and D. While you're doing that, I'm just sorting my axes out so you don't have to stress about what I'm doing. Okay, so we're substituting, we're finding A, B, C, and D. Let's see what we get. I've showed you how to do the substitution. So you need to do basically the same thing for A, B, C, and D to get those outputs. Lupe, I would definitely put the X value in brackets. Anytime I substitute, I use brackets. And particularly when you then do it on your calculator. I don't know why, but sometimes the calculator gets very, well, actually, no, I do know why. If you don't have brackets, sometimes the order of operations get mixed up. So when you then type it on a calculator, you need to have those brackets there. So that's why I always just put them in brackets immediately. So yeah, immediately, whatever you substitute, put into brackets. Joshua, yes, it can be negative. So don't stress, negative is fine. What about that? Okay, I'm going to give you 1 more minute. I like what I'm seeing so far, though. This is good. If you are done, you can start sketching your Cartesian plane. And if you are feeling comfortable, you can start drawing your graph. We did do one like this the other day, so Monday. So you should be able to draw one. But even if you just plot your points so long, that's also okay. Okay, guys, let's have a scene. Right, so if we substitute in -1, so here we are, -1. She wants to sit right here, but then gets upset when I put my arm on her. Y is equal to 2 times -1 squared minus 3. Now, -1 squared is +1, so 2 times 1 minus 3, which is -1. So exactly like I said to Joshua, negatives are absolutely fine. Right, if we just do this verbally now, 2 times 0 squared minus 3, so 0 squared is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 3 is -3. 2 times 1 squared minus 3, 1 squared is 1, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 minus 3, -1. And then 2 times +2 squared minus 3, 2 squared is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, 8 minus 3 is 5. So hopefully you're remembering this from Monday's lesson because we've got those same values again. Remember, we spoke about the fact that this particular type of graph, whenever there is this squared attached to my x, I'm going to have the symmetry. Sorry, Baba. I'm going to have the symmetry. So now when we plot these points, and let's maybe just write the coordinates first. -2, 5. We're going to get that graph that is the cup shape or the U shape. Right, so if we plot these points, first one, -2, 5. So I go to -2 on my x, 5 on my y. Oh no. Essentially, when I draw the lines and where they meet, I plot my point. Now, guys, don't have the lines there, just draw the point. But that's how we plot a coordinate. So that's the first one, -2, 5. I'm just going to write it down so you know which coordinate is which. -1, -1. 0, -3. 1, -1. And finally 2, 5. Right, so again, hopefully you can see this is definitely not a straight line. So we can leave the ruler, we don't need the ruler. And this is, like I said, the graph that is the cup shape. I'm going to do my best to do this freehand. So we get something that looks like that. Don't know if any of you remember right at the end of Monday's lesson, I actually told you what this is called. A graph that looks like this, that's the U shape, is called a parabola, or we can say it is a quadratic graph. You do not need to know this. I'm just telling you for interest's sake. You don't need to know what it's called. You do need to be able to draw it. Okay, so guys, remember, whenever there's that x squared, we're going to get this cup shape. But same thing, substitute in your x values into your equation, and you're going to get your graph. And exactly there, this is a non-linear graph. Okay, so Arian, at this point, yeah, non-linear, you can call it non-linear. When you get to grade 10, we start calling it a parabola. So I'm just putting it in your mind so that when you eventually hear it, you know what it is. But at this